You see a little nose appear.
Yeah, I think she just missed coming on live, but I just saw a nose coming up from the bottom there.
So she's going to come here and grumble and bark at me now, which will be perfect.
Will be.
Right, so I think we're up and live and good to go.
Yep.
How are we doing, Milo?
I'm doing very good, yeah. Very good on this sunny day.
Good, good. So we're talking about mindset and weight loss today, which sounds a bit hippy-dippy maybe. Like, how are you, where do you, I mean, you know, how do you perceive mindset inside of this as like as a tool or an importance for weight loss?
Well, I think if you take the human out of it, mindset's not very important, but the only fact though is that we're all human, so we've got to include the human in that component, if that makes sense. Do you get what I mean when I say like
scientific, like if we were to be like, if we were calorie burning machines and that exclusively, it would be irrelevant, because the truth is calories in, calories out. But the fact that we are human means that we have to do something that sustains that.
Yeah. And I think if you just kind of look like what I guess I believe what mindset is, it's the beliefs that we have, which basically create our world. Like, it influences what we think, say, and behave in any given situation. And I don't know, the way that I've just kind of termed that is that your mindset dictates how you will behave. And that almost sounds like it's predetermined, like our actions are predetermined. Do you think in some extent that is maybe the case?
Yeah. So let's put it as, let's go as simple as, you know, there are many ways that your mindset can be affected, right? Let's go as simple as you're someone who is positive versus someone who is negative. I'm sure we can immediately see how that influences our ability to participate in activities. For a start, if you're negative, you're going to think, well, that probably isn't going to go well, and you might not engage in that activity, versus if you're positive, you're more likely to engage in that activity. The same is true, like if we think of, let's just go what it is, weight loss. If we're negative and we don't truly believe that this is possible, or it's going to be hard, or it's going to be too much of a struggle, we're unlikely to participate in the activities that lead to weight loss. Whereas if we're positive, we believe that there's a possibly, you know, ideal outcome, we're capable of change, and although it may be difficult, it's something that's worthwhile and we can get behind it, we're more likely to participate. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think you've hit it in one. You know, those that believe that they can typically have a lot more chance of it happening. And if you go into something, as you said, I'm not going to be able to do this, then guess what? The most likely outcome is that you're not going to be able to do that, because you've already almost decided the outcome of the situation yourself. And if you do have some success, it's just down to a little bit of maybe luck, potentially.
So I think the most important thing in this then, Milo, is can you change your mindset?
Yeah, I definitely think so, because I think if you look at, like, let's just say what a negative mindset might be a little bit more fixed in that sense. And I think you may perceive a positive mindset as something that is a little bit more growth and like willing to kind of learn. Like, think of that fixed sized as like, I can't do something, and that growth mindset of this is going to be hard, but I'm going to give it a crack.
Yes, Milo, straight into terms like fixed mindset and growth mindset. Someone's read up for this. Yeah, no, 100%. I think the same as anything else, the brain is trainable, right? And we tend to repeat what we practice. In the same way that, like, if you're trying to pick up a new skill, let's say I'm obviously continuing to bang my head against the drums at the moment. That skill acquisition at the beginning, I can't play drums. No matter how, no matter what audience or what drum kit or what song you get me to play, I can't play it. But if I practice again and again and again, I can play drums. In the same way that, like, right now, you might feel like you can't be positive, no matter what the situation, no matter, all those different things that we put in front of you are going to still be negative. If you continue to incrementally practice being positive, we pick up those skills, we adapt, the brain starts to change, and we can actually relay those kind of natural neural pathways.
Yeah, like, I think, we write our own stories, and we can also change them on that fact. And as you said, like, if you practice something good enough, you will get better at it. Like, there was the story of that guy who wanted to become a golfer, and he put 10,000 hours in and became pro. I don't know whether the story is true, but the you know, because I haven't done it, but you know, the anecdote was, if you practice something enough, you will get better. And I'm sure we all have examples in our lives where we weren't very good at something, but we just keep plugging away at it, and we got better.
100%. I also think it's important to note that inside of this, one of the most irritating narratives for me are the kind of like bullheaded, like just crack on or just be more positive. Like, you know, we're saying that these things can change, but I in no way am saying that this is, you just decide to be positive and you become positive. Does that make sense? Like, it's not that easy, unfortunately. And it's also not your fault. You know, if you're being told by someone, well, just be, you know, be grateful, be positive, be motivated. That kind of makes you feel shit, because when you immediately don't feel that particular way, you feel like you failed in that. And the truth is, this is incremental practice, and it does require work. It is possible, but it's also not a, hey, do this right now, and then in 5 seconds you've achieved that change in mindset.
Yeah, like think of it, it's a massive continuum to be able to, a slow continuum to switch things out, because you might start off in a sense of like, I can't get to the gym because I need to cook for my family. So actually, like, the first thing is actually, I'm pretty good at organizing. Yep. Do you see what I mean? It's just a slight shift to maybe, like, in the end result is like, I'm pretty good at organizing, you know, I can get my kids or my partner to help with dinner to get started. And, you know, you can reframe a situation to go in your favor. And I know that's just a very brief example, but I'm sure we've got all one similar where.
Well, let's go into that a little bit more then. So like, what are the ways, or let's go for the 3 simple ways that we can start to improve, start to like move along that continuum, start to improve our mindset?
I think one really good one is kind of gratitude. And I think that's, I guess we look at gratitude in being thankful and appreciating stuff, but I look at it more in the lines of looking for the positives that have happened in a situation and using those small shoots of progress to grow something big. Because normally when we try to make changes, the big changes don't happen until 6 months down the line. It's an accumulation of lots and lots of small shoots of progress. And the first stage is first of all being aware that you've actually started making 5 minutes time for yourself, for example.
Yeah, like, so practicing gratitude is one of the most well-documented ways of starting to shift that mindset from a kind of negative to a positive, or like it primarily changes self-talk, how we kind of speak to ourselves. And it's literally that idea of like building reps of, if you're somebody who tends to focus on the negative, once a day, whether you write this down or just say it, say 1 to 2 things that you are grateful for, that went well today, things that note something positive, spend the effort in actually seeking out or thinking about, you know, what that positive aspect of today was. And over time, that's you build reps, you get practice, you lay those neural pathways, you get better at seeing the positive as opposed to exclusively focusing on the negative.
Yeah, definitely. I think another point that I have as well is about mindfulness. And this is, I guess, in some way, this is just around building awareness. So starting to build awareness of when you're starting to talk yourself down, and then what to kind of do in that situation. And I think this goes back to what I was talking about before. It's like noticing these moments where we are almost self-sabotaging and starting to write that story a little bit differently, you know, starting to reframe that situation in your favor.
Yeah. And again, so we think about, I'm just going to be broad and call it negative mindset. When we have a negative mindset, there tends to be an emotional component, there tends to be an emotional reaction that tends to lead to non-beneficial activities or behaviors. And this tends to get learned. And actually what's happening is that we're basically practicing this kind of route of something happens, and then this thing called the amygdala in our brain, which is the kind of emotional survival component of our brain, sends out this emotional response. Now, what mindfulness does, and by mindfulness, we just mean practicing of actually just thinking about what's happening, being mindful. What we're doing is we're engaging a different part of the brain called the prefrontal cortex. It's this little thinky bit at the front that just basically communicates with that amygdala and goes, yeah, I know you feel that. That's cool. Like we recognize that. but actually it's okay. Here's this is why it's happening. This is what's going to happen next. And we start to bring down that emotion. And in time, if we continue to practice that mindfulness, that amygdala is still going to go. We've learned that pathway. We're still always going to get that initial emotional response. But again, we get better and better at re-engaging the thinking part of the brain and going, all right, it's okay though, like, or that's unjust, you feeling that way. Or do you know what I mean? We just start to be a little bit more rational and calm and responsive to the situation.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point there, and the way that you put it as well.
Just shoving in the neuroscience there.
I know.
So gratitude, mindfulness, I think those are the big ones. I think it's also important, like, again, just sell our own wares. The easiest short-term thing is hire a coach, get a counselor, bring someone into the situation who is kind of a objective, bystander, basically. Someone you can have that conversation with and go, you're in that emotional state and I'm feeling this way and this is how I perceive the situation. And there's someone who's not, they essentially act as a short-term prefrontal cortex to go, well, have you thought of it this way? Like, actually, based on what we've seen today, that might not actually be the case. How many times have you had people come in like, I'm horrendous, my activity's awful, I'm really unfit, I'm really unstrong. And then we run them through an assessment. It's like, well, actually, no, you're probably not as bad as you thought you were. And you're probably giving yourself quite a hard time, which is making this even harder on you.
Yeah, like it happens all the time. People come in and say, I'm not very capable, I'm not very functionally fit. And then you look, well, there's nothing stopping us doing anything we want in the gym. And they're like, oh, and I think that's that first shoot of reframing somebody's perspective on something. And I think sometimes having a professional say that suddenly reinforces it.
I think short term, especially if we're in a cycle of that kind of constant failure, negative self-talk, like self-sabotage, we're just yo-yo dieting is a great manifestation of all of that. Getting a coach in the early stages, and by early stages, realistically, I mean first year or so, that's really helpful just to kind of undo that little bit. Again, get that kind of just little stopgap of someone to be rational and help you see this from different situations and keep you out of that emotional component as you start to practice gratitude, start to build mindfulness. Because as you do all these things, you start to become self-sufficient, and then you don't need that help from the coach in the long term.
Yeah, I think it's just that early stage where they can help you, point you in the right direction and just kind of guide you in what you need to focus on. Because I think sometimes what perhaps you think is important or you think is a worry isn't something that you should be necessarily worrying about initially.
Absolutely. Right, let's stop yammering on Milo. So that's big things. Mindset, yes, it's absolutely vital to weight loss. If you don't have it down, the truth, because again, truth is calories in, calories out. But if you don't have the mental emotional component to be able to do the things that are required in order to have that negative energy balance, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And it is something that we can change. It is something that we can make our mindset and the way we perceive things more positive. Things you can do are practice gratitude. You can practice mindfulness, again, whether that's through traditional mindfulness apps or even just intentionally trying to build awareness around the positive and negative things that you do. And third, get a coach, get a counselor, hire a professional that is there to help you see this from a different perspective, take you out of your own little bubble, and be a little bit more, just come at this in a more positive direction and actually see some growth with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Anything you want to add to that, Milo?
I mean, we've spoken enough, haven't we?
That's it. Perfect. Brilliant. Thanks, Milo. Thanks, everyone.
All right. See you later.